Hello and welcome to another wheel settings video. Today we're on Assetto Corsa Competizione, also known as ACC, and we're on the PlayStation 5. Now I know when this game came out, first of all on the PS4, there was a bit of an issue with the frame rate. It was quite low, and when you were going down around some very sort of slow corners and making big steering inputs, you'd notice the frame rate drop quite a lot. And it was quite off-putting. But on the PlayStation 5, which I'm using, there's none of that issue at all. So I'm definitely going to be playing this game a lot more in the future. Our wheel we're using, of course, is the Logitech G29. So as always, I'm going to talk you through the force feedback settings, give you a bit of information about what each setting changes, and then look at the button mapping as well quickly. So force feedback then. The first setting we have is the gain. So I've set that at 70% on my wheel, and the gain is basically the standard force feedback strength. So you have a value from 0% up to 100%. Okay, and that's basically the strength of the force feedback. So you just want to make sure that it's kind of, it's a bit of personal preference. If you find you're getting a bit of clipping with your wheel, you may want to lower it a little bit. The minimum force then, that's basically a minimum force added to the wheel, and especially with the Logitech G29, it will stop the effect you get when you kind of get a very light wheel when you're in a straight line. So particularly on the F1 game, the Logitech suffers with this, is when you're in a straight line, going down a straight, you kind of have a very light wheel just for a couple of degrees of rotation before the force feedback kicks in. So this setting just helps with that a little bit, so you can increase that to help with that. The dynamic damping then, this is basically the force you feel from the wheels of the car. Effectively 100% is supposed to be the ideal realistic value, and I've lowered this slightly just because the Logitech isn't the most powerful force feedback wheel there is. This can go from 0 to 200%, and the road effects is exactly what it sounds like. So any effects you feel through the wheel from the road, such as bumps, etc. Going into advanced settings then, so the steer scale we just have set on 100, so we've set left the lock at 0. The steering linearity, the higher you make that, the steering becomes more sensitive the further you turn the wheel. We've just set that at 1, and the brake gamma does the same thing but with the brake. So we've set those both to 1 so that it's the same as what you see in the game. And then with the dead zones, both on 0%. If you find when you're resting your foot on either the throttle or the brake, you get a bit of an input, you might just want to increase the dead zone slightly, just so that when you're going down a straight and your foot's resting on the brake, you're not actually braking. So quick look at the control bindings then, the button mapping. Okay, so the control bindings then, we've got shift up as R1 and shift down as L1. Obviously we don't have the ignition button assigned because we currently have, we use the automatic ignition at the moment. Starter is the big return button. We've got circle for pit limiter, toggle wipers for triangle, left and right buttons to cycle through the dashboard, and then we've got the turnable dial to increase and decrease the traction control. We've got increase and decrease the ABS with the big plus minus buttons, and then to increase or decrease the brake bias, we've got R3 and L3. There are obviously lots of other options that you can add. The customization is endless basically, and like I said, it's down to personal preference. If you do a race and you notice that you really need to change something and you want a shortcut for it, then this is where you can go to make those changes happen, and make sure that you can administer those changes during the race. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, found it useful, please give it a like and feel free to subscribe. We'll be doing a Project Cars 2 wheel settings video on the Logitech G29 soon as well, and then we'll start doing some Fanatec wheel settings in the future.